Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the fourth edition of the Dynasty Double Take, brought to you by Dynasty League Football. My name is Dan Sanio, and I am here with my good friend Nathan Powell. Nathan, are we ready for some more takes?
I'm ready for some takes, Dan. We gotta spitfire them. We gotta get them out there, and we'll yell at each other.
I like it, spitfire. So today we are going to be talking about some running backs. I, Dan Sanio, will be defending the side of early running back strategy in startup drafts or startup strategies. And Nathan will be defending the zero running back strategy. So, Nathan, why don't you get us started with some zero RB talk?
All right. So I'll start us off with zero RB. And there are a number of factors that go into why the zero RB strategy is effective. The number one in Dynasty, obviously, is that the wide receiver position has much more of a longevity than the running backs do, and they don't have the risk of losing their jobs as easily as a running back does. But actually, I'm just going to stick with the ones that when people talk about redraft for zero RB, the main concern is that running backs get hurt often. So, that means that running backs can lose their value very quickly, but also the replacement level of running backs is much easier, where it's much easier to find, a guy who ends up being an RB2 on his team who vaults into that position on a random week to make him startable. There are much more random week starters at the running back position due to injuries than there are wide receivers. So it's a lot easier to use your bench to accumulate guys who you can start at the running back position than there is at the wide receiver position. So I like to build my depth at running back while investing those top assets at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of I don't want to say it's groupthink, but that's kind of the way that Dynasty is now. It's you build around wide receiver and you get running back when you can. But I honestly think that early running back, and maybe it's not like the first 4 rounds or whatever it happens to be, but getting that running back position set, if you can get one of those elite guys, if you can get yourself a Todd Gurley or an Ezekiel Elliott or a David Johnson, those guys that are going to have the top 5 to top 8 overall scoring within a PPR league, and you can get them, in the top 8 picks, I think that makes a lot of sense. And these guys we've seen their value when you go early running back. We've seen their value fluctuate a decent amount. We saw Todd Gurley going 101 or 102 in his rookie draft and super, super high valued. And then Jeff Fisher happened and he just kind of fell off the face of the earth. But we see this huge spike back to relevance. And now we see all of these guys back in the top. And it's a weird place because wide receiver is so widely regarded as the premier position in Dynasty. But looking back the last 5 years, running back has dominated pretty much all but 1 year. You still have your Antonio Browns and your DeAndre Hopkins and your Odell Beckhams when he's healthy on top for wide receivers. But they're consistently getting outscored each and every year by your Le'Veon Bells, your Todd Gurleys, your David Johnsons when healthy, your Melvin Gordons, guys like that. So I think, I'm still deep in my soul a wide receiver guy, but this early running back, maybe getting one is getting to be, I think, more and more relevant. I think if you start your team off with those guaranteed points, those guaranteed touches, it's just so much more valuable than hoping your wide receiver stays on the field and gets 180 targets.
Yeah, and one of the knocks against zero RB in a dynasty format is people correlate, zero RB directly to punting year one or directly to going in the youth movement. There are ways to go zero RB and do that same thing where you're acquiring RB2s with hopes that guys get injured. You can go do zero RB and still win now if you can accumulate guys like Antonio Brown and AJ Green. And, there's plenty of wide receiver ones that get drafted in the first few rounds that aren't considered young guys. So, for people who are going to say, I don't want to go zero running back because I don't want to punt, there are ways to not punt while also going zero running back.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. The punting you can do in any fashion. It's Well, I shouldn't say you can do it any fast. You shouldn't do it ever. I get the strategy. I understand it. It's fun to build that direction. It's fun to accumulate those assets. But the name of the game is winning. And running backs are, I mean, that's where the points are. That's where the winning happens. So I'm more of the win as much as I can now. And if I need to rebuild, great. But now I have some cushion. I have that padding, from first place to second place to third place. I have my dues paid, right? So I'm more comfortable starting whether it's an older team right away or it's a running back heavy team, because I would rather win in the short term and then have more fun with the roster in the long run. Now that's just a personal thing, but I really believe that running back is officially back. I don't believe it's necessarily robust RB quite yet. But I think we're in a really good place with running backs. And I think starting early with just one is a smart play.
Yeah. And I know that we try and keep these episodes evergreen to where you can listen to them a few months, even a couple years from now. But it is something that varies from year to year. There are more running backs taken in the first, 36 picks than there was a couple of years ago. Right now in the top 36 picks, it's 16 running backs. A few years ago, that was down to like 10 to 12. So certainly the zero RB strategy gains more credence when there's more running backs going early, and it loses its credence when there's less running backs going early. So it can vary a little bit, but for me, I don't like the draft and I don't like the year to try and determine my strategy. I like to stick to a strategy that I think I find successful, which is obviously, punting and going zero RB for the most part as well. But also, just to pivot into a different part of this conversation, how do you approach zero RB in rookie drafts? Is it more of a tiebreaker thing where if you're going zero RB, then you go heavy with wide receiver, or maybe you went zero RB and that makes you lean towards running backs in future years?
Yeah, I think if you're going to do a zero RB startup and your rookies aren't necessarily involved in that, or maybe it's a year later and you started, you're now year 2 going into your rookie draft. I think if your team is ready, you can sort of draft for need, but at the same time, that's kind of a losing proposition. You always want to try to get the player with the most value, the player with the most upside, and everyone has their guys, but it's so much smarter to go wherever the value is, just because then you have that built in. You have that ability to take that asset and go turn it into something different if you need to. If you're just taking need, if you're taking the 7th running back off the board just because you need a running back, but the wide receiver 1, 2, and 3 are all still there, kind of like our rookie drafts now, it's a losing proposition. As much as I want to say that those running backs are important to have and you maybe need them, you're losing on value.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that you can have I'm only drafting this type of position, particularly in rookie drafts where the pool is thin and there's, a very limited amount of, options that you have there. Let's say you are gun-ho. I don't ever want to invest a serious type asset in running back. Then you draft Darius Guice or Rashad Penny at 102, and then you try and flip them for another young player like a Corey Davis or someone of that, scenario. So I think that with a rookie draft, you're a little bit more, okay, you just have to take the guy that's most talented, the guy that went highest in the NFL draft. And you don't really have a specific, this is my positional strategy. But for me, when I do go zero RB, and it is like a very close decision between a running back and a wide receiver, maybe between like a Ronald Jones and a DJ Moore in 2018, I am likely to take into account, okay, how much is my team looking to compete this year or able to compete this year? And if I think I can compete this year, maybe I'll go the Ronald Jones over the DJ Moore, because I have them ranked closely.
Definitely. And you've got to be honest with yourself. You can't draft that player assuming that they're going to make you compete. You have to be ready to compete to add those pieces. So for me, that goes all the way back to when we're talking about the startup. I want to always put myself in a position to win and then keep adding those pieces to help me win for a little bit longer. We can sustain that window, turn that 3-year window into a 5-year window. Whether that means I'm taking some early wide receivers and just that, like I said before, that one running back. The goal is to sustain winning as long as humanly possible. And that can be tough, obviously, with guys getting older and guys getting hurt and guys retiring and so on and so forth. We've been agreeing too much here, and I'm trying to stir the pot a little bit. I really want to see the sustained winning, and the wide receiver position seems to be a little bit more volatile than we maybe were ready for. We saw the big boom in 14, and it kind of turned everyone upside down into being a wide receiver guy or a wide receiver girl or a gal, whatever you want to, whoever's playing. The owners all wanted to have wide receivers, and then now we're kind of finding ourselves in limbo, and the winning teams seem to be overloaded on running back, and the teams with the attractive looking rosters have, they're front loaded with wide receiver. So it comes down to the good looking roster versus the actual contention.
Yeah, and I think I'll wrap us up on my side with the number one mistake that zero RB people make is that they say, okay, I drafted zero RB. I went wide receivers in the first 4 rounds. That isn't zero RB, whether it's redraft or dynasty. Zero RB is a direct reliance on RB1s getting hurt and running backs, getting into positions that they weren't expected to be in the year before or, during the offseason. So for me, the biggest mistake from zero RB is that they end up over-investing, getting an RB 25 in the 5th round. And that's just not good value. There's more value at the wide receiver position during those rounds, even tight ends or quarterbacks. So I think that if you're going to draft any running backs in the first 7-8 rounds, I'd rather invest the high pick with a Leonard Fournette or a Dalvin Cook in the 2nd round than I am to go maybe I'm just trying to think of a name, but like a Ronald Jones in the 5th or 6th round of a starter.
Right. And for me, for that early running back for the early running back side, I'm honestly looking at trying to get one of those elite guys in the 1st. If I fall in kind of a weird spot, maybe I'll hold off until the 3rd because I'm still getting that early RB. But like you said, zero running back is so much different than the perception. It's, I'm just going to wait and get like the Theo Riddicks and the Chris Thompsons. And it's like, no, those are actual fantasy assets. That has nothing to do with this. Which is just kind of another reason why it's just kind of easier to go with the early running back thing, because zero RB in its truest form it's a best ball strategy is what it is. You're getting a whole bunch of guys that could see touches and could boom, or you're screwed and all you have is to live off of is your wide receivers, which you're going to need big points from to keep up with the running back. So it's a weird spot, but I would recommend to everyone to go out and find some of the original zero RB content and just give it a read and give it a look over and go back to zero RB in its truest form if you're going to make that attempt. But if you want to win, stick with early RB.
Yes, that early work is Sean Siegel on RotoViz, so check that out. And thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Dynasty Double Take. I'm sorry we didn't argue and get mad at each other much this episode, Dan. I think that we'll have to find something more feisty to talk about with our next episode.
I like it. I like agreeing with you, but I also like yelling at you.
All right. We will see you guys next time.